What's up, guys? This is FlamingVictini, and I'm back to narrate my round 3 OLT matches. Well, actually, not round 3, round 2.5, I think. Um, Whatever, the one after my series with lefties, and I lost that series, so I got knocked to losers bracket. So this is in the losers bracket, and I am up against my good friend NJNP, and I guess I'll just jump right into the teams for this game. So first, a little background on why I chose my team. This was the team I used in my very first PS Live, actually. And I just, like, NJNP loves Volturn plus Hoopa, and I figured that Beedrill plus, like, a nice, like, breaking core would be really good. Haxorus generally is pretty cool against his teams, and I figured that Beedrill Weavile would do really well. You will note that my team does not have a hazard removal, and it has Beedrill and Weavile. And normally I would hate having Beedrill plus Weavile and no hazard removal, but it's worked surprisingly well, so I decided to just go with it. And I think you'll see later on that I tried to be a little too stylish this round, but looking at team matchup, I do have Magnezone for his Ferrothorn, and Ferrothorn is really annoying for this team. But one thing I completely forgot was that NJNP likes to run Shed Shell on Ferrothorn. The reason I say this is because on his RMT, which is basically very similar to this team, he did bring Shed Shell on Ferrothorn. And so when I realized that, I got really worried that this Ferrothorn was just going to be a huge problem for me. But I figured that if I could remove the Ferrothorn, Azumarill would already obviously be really important, and I do actually have Power Up Punch on it to do a little damage to Ferrothorn if needed. Haxorus could become threatening if I can set up on a Keldeo locked into a water move, and if its Gliscor is not physically defensive, and I can remove that. Otherwise, it's looking like Lando T has few opportunities to get up rocks unless I'm going to concede a ton of hazards on my own, but it will be important to stop Keldeo from spamming Secret Sword if my Azumarill were to go down. His Manectric looks really threatening, but at the same time my Beedrill plus Weavile looks really threatening. The biggest problem I see is Scarf Keldeo, so I really need to play careful around that and develop a game plan so I'm thinking win with Haxorus, or keep Azumarill really healthy if I can, but that'll be tough because it'll give up so much momentum if he brings in Manectric. So for leading, I decided to lead off with a Beedrill since I can just U-turn out and do a lot of damage. He led off with his Latios. I'm guessing this was expecting my Lando T. Here I realized that if I just go for the Protect, then I'm just going to lose a lot of momentum that I could get from just going straight to the U-turn, and I really doubted that NJNP would stay into Side Shock that turn 1. So I do go straight for the U-turn and on that Gliscor, and I bring in my Azumarill. Now right here, I go for the Power Up Punch just to get damage on that Ferrothorn and see what it has. And here we actually see that it has Leftovers. So this was really big for me because that means my Magnezone can trap this later on in the game, which will be absolutely huge. The problem here is that I didn't want to go straight to Magnezone because I figured a double might come, and I was a little too scared to go for the Waterfall on this Ferrothorn, expecting that double. I think going for the Waterfall was my better play though. The reason I was afraid of going for the Waterfall, because like if I'm staying in the power, I ended up going for the Power Up Punch this turn. The thing is, if he stayed in to like Power Whip or something, my Azumarill was going down anyway, and it wouldn't help me to get up that Power Up Punch damage because my Magnezone is Choice Specs. So like if I was going to predict him to try to play around my Magnezone, basically, I think I should have just been a little more manly and gone straight for the Waterfall rather than the Power Up Punch right here. And that would have really helped, as he did switch out into his Gliscor, and I went for the second Power Up Punch. Now, I ran a Calc here, and I did not think +2 Aqua Jet would kill, because that's really physically defensive Gliscor. So I just go for the Waterfall, and I didn't realize that this was the Rocker and Ferrothorn was a Spiker. But, that does make sense on his team, however. Now here he brings in Manectric, and people were saying like, oh, why did you stay in to sack Azumarill? And I think I was being a little unsure about whether Keldeo was Scarf or not, but because I was thinking that maybe Hoopa was the Scarfer, but I think I really should have realized that Keldeo would be the Scarfer and Hoopa would most likely be a band set. And also, if I switch out here, I'm just going to lose another Mon. Now, I could have gone to Lando T, because Lando T really was kind of useless, but if you look at how this Manectric matches up against my team, it's really tough to handle, because I really have to eat a hit with Azumarill's Assault Vest, or or really try to beat it down with Beedrill plus Weavile's Eye Shard or Haxorus. Manectric is a little annoying to beat, especially when it has that defensive Ferrothorn plus Gliscor to support it. So here I just go for the Aqua Jet to get off a ton of damage on this Manectric, as he actually goes for the Volt Switch and he goes out into his Latios. Now this I kind of feel bad about in the retrospect, but in the battle I don't think Aqua Jet was the wrong play here. I felt as if NJNP might try to over-predict because I do have the Weavile that can just come in very, very safely on the side. Well, not very safely, but if he goes for the Psyshock, I bring in Weavile for free and have a really good chance at removing this Latios outright. So he actually over-predicts here and goes for the Draco Meteor as I go for the Aqua Jet crit. And if I've stayed in and play rough right there, that would have been so huge. It would have been tremendous, because that meant he just lost his Latios, and you're going to see at the end that this game was essentially going to come down to me. If I had one more extra Mon, I would have been able to force gameplay in a different way, but really, I really don't think that this Aqua Jet was a bad play. I think Draco Meteor was a little bit bad play. If you're going to be worried about, if you're going to go into Latios to revenge the Azumarill or finish it off, and then you go for the Draco Meteor on it trying to catch Weavile, I think that's a little too tryhard, but I guess he knew that I would Aqua Jet if I did stay in, so that does kind of work out for him. I get off, he's down to 50%, which is good for me, but it would have been even better if I just removed it entirely and still had my Azumarill. Now, here I go for the Poison Jab because I don't want to U-turn out into something and then let his Manectric come back in for free, and he actually goes into his Keldeo. Now, this was a really, really tough turn for me. I figured that, I wasn't, like, if I switched to something, it wasn't gonna, if I switched to something, it would have saved Beedrill, so I was really hesitant about sacking Lando T, because it was really keeping me afloat from basically losing the Secret Sword. And the way I was planning to win is if this is choice locked and it's Scarf, then I have to force it to go for the water move and then set up with Haxorus after removing the Ferrothorn. That was my plan to win. And my Haxorus is Lumberry DD, so I would have been able to get up 2 DDs and essentially win if I can remove the Ferrothorn and force the Keldeo into a water move. And right here, I didn't think going for Poison Jab was worthwhile since I wouldn't kill, and I didn't think I would be able to switch into anything. I still kind of want, if I were to switch into anything, I think it would have to be Weavile. And the other thing here is that if he was Scarf, he would not kill me, and that would mean I can U-turn out. So I actually go for the Protect right here just to gauge what he wants to do, but like I was saying, here I go for the U-turn as he actually does outspeed me, confirming that he has Choice Scarf, and I get off that U-turn damage so that it's more in range of Haxorus' Dragon Claw, +1 Dragon Claw. And here I go into my Magnezone. Now, here again, I was thinking that it's completely safe to go for the Volt Switch, because then I can sack my Beedrill and just bring back Magnezone and go for the HP Fire. But again, I'm going to stress this one more time, you should really keep this in mind. That one extra Mon on my side could have made the difference in how I directed the game flow to set up with Haxorus. So yeah, here I go for the Volt Switch as my Beedrill comes in on the sack so I can bring back in Magnezone once again immediately and remove this Ferrothorn with the Magnezone's HP Fire. So this is looking, it's looking nice because I've removed the Ferrothorn and I am up 4-3, but that doesn't really mean much because he has some bigger threats to my team. And here he actually goes for the Recover as I go for the HP Fire. And I mean, to be completely fair, switching into Weavile is like pretty much insane. It's like really, really insane to do. But I've said this, I don't know how many times I've said this, but that one extra Mon really would have been important. So he actually goes for the Calm Mind here, which really surprised me. But now it's able to work out for him because now he can just go straight for the Draco Meteor and remove me. And right here, I do go into my Weavile, and the reason I don't go for the knockoff, I go for the Icicle Crash to finish this. The reason I don't go for the knockoff is because in the very odd case that he brought in his Keldeo, I actually did not want to remove that Keldeo's Choice Scarf, because if I remove the Keldeo's Choice Scarf, his Manectric is still gonna win, and having a Choice Scarfed Keldeo will it's tough because like it depends on whether I'm able to set up with Haxorus, but my idea was that if the Keldeo has Icy Wind and I remove its Choice Scarf, then then there's no way I'm going to be able to set up, because Keldeo is still going to be Weavile 1v1. It's going to be able to then Scald my Haxorus and then Icy Wind my Scald my Landor T and Icy Wind my Haxorus, and there's no way I'm going to be able to set up and win. So the only way, and even if that doesn't happen, he can try to force the play so that Manectric can win as well, as long as he does not let me set up a Dragon Dance on the Manectric's HP Ice with Haxorus. So really, I went for Icicle Crash because I did not want to remove the Keldeo's Choice card, because my only way to win was to set up 2 Dragon Dances with Haxorus on the Keldeo's Choice Locked Scald, which is really the only way I was thinking I could win. So he actually goes to his Manectric right here, and I go for the Ice Shard just to get off a little more damage, and he just goes for the Flamethrower. And this is, see, like, having a way to force that Keldeo in rather than if I had my Magnezone, I would have been able to tank 1 Flamethrower. I'm pretty sure I would have been able to tank 1 Flamethrower since I am a bit bulky, and remove this Manectric and kind of force in the Keldeo, and that way I would have been able to win. So like really having the extra Mon to kind of force that Manectric out or kill the Manectric so that Keldeo has to come in would have made me able to win. So here I just go for the Dragon Dance, just for the Dragon Claw. I did not go for the Dragon Dance since it wasn't really going to matter, and I was kind of just hoping that he would like try to choke and like Volt Switch into his Keldeo or something, and then I could get a crit or something of those sorts. But yeah, he just brings in his Keldeo here and goes for the Scald to finish me off. I am defensive Lando T, not Pastro, as people were thinking. So yeah, really I was just trying to force setup with Haxorus on the Keldeo's Choice Locked Water move, but I wasn't able to do that properly because of the way I sacked my Mons to try to get what I was doing rather than being a little more aggressive. I might have been able to save a Mon and then use that to force gameplay in the direction I wanted. So yeah, that was game 1, and I'll be right back for game 2. Alright guys, we're back for game 2, and looking at his team, he has brought a very disgusting team that you can immediately recognize is Baton Pass. He actually built this with Dennis, and I talked to him later and he told me that it was because a lot of my teams were weak to Baton Pass. But luckily for me, I do have some countermeasures for NJNP's team, and I will explain my team in full depth, not just like how it matches up against NJNP, but also just explain the team in general, because a lot of people were wondering what the heck is this guy doing with Archeops, Charizard X, and no Stealth Rocks removal, and etc. So this team was actually built a while back. When I say a while back, I mean like probably like 6 months ago or something. And in that metagame, our lead Archeops was in the Lando I metagame. I don't remember how long ago that was. Maybe not 6 months. But this was a while ago, and Archeops was really, really good in that metagame. There was really not much that would stop Archeops from taunting and setting up rocks to endeavoring or tailwinding. It was really, really good at preventing rocks, and even if it did not prevent the rocks, Charizard still managed to get a lot of opportunities to do work, and I also just wasn't able to fit hazard removal. A lot of teams were weak to Belly Drum Azumarill at the time, and I also wanted to utilize Sash Diggersby to just hazard stack. And my Bisharp is actually taunt because the team is fully physical and it just lost to Quagsire. And I'll have you know that I did use Taunt Bisharp before CTC made that Taunt Bisharp team that Pokémon uploaded in his Hita Fajita. I did use Taunt Bisharp before that, so call me the god. But no, don't. But yeah, I did actually use Taunt Bisharp before that. I don't know where I'm trying to go with this, but and I did use Archeops before Tisung. But and I did want to build this team around Archeops and Hawlucha. Hawlucha is because I can set up on Choice Scarf Lando T really, really well. A lot of teams give the opportunity where if he is locked into Stone Edge, I can substitute with Hawlucha and Swords Dance and just break through with like, it just breaks through a lot of teams that a lot of teams at that time, it just broke through. And if I could use Bisharp to try to force Earthquake or Superpower rather than Stone Edge, and just stay in on expected U-turns, I could stay in with Mon so that I'd punish a potential U-turn, and if he stays and kill that Mon, then I get some sort of setup. And Hawlucha can actually just Swords Dance on Stone Edges as well. So that's why I have Hawlucha. It's also a mini fighting Dark Check. But yeah, that's the team, and you'll see that I do have Taunt Archeops and Taunt Bisharp, which is really big. I'm figuring his Mew has Mental Herb and is some Iron Defense pass. Sableye is probably some sort of hazard removal, and Calm Minder. Togekiss, I'm not completely sure. Clef is definitely unaware, Calm Mind stuff. Latias is probably some sort of support, and Whimsicott is a standard set he loves to use, like Memento or whatever. So I just lead off with my Archeops, as he leads off with this Whimsicott, and he just goes straight for the taunt as I go for the Tailwind, just to kind of see what he wants to do. I go to my Bisharp here in case he wants to Memento, but he just goes for the Tailwind, and here I switch out back into my Charizard, knowing that he will not Memento and most likely taunt, and now I just go back into my Bisharp, I believe, as he goes into his Mew. Oh, I actually go into my Archeops. I guess going into Archeops knowing that I can taunt on Mew's like Iron Defense and then taunt again, but he goes to his Mew, and I just go for the taunt here as he switches out into his Sableye. Now that means that Sableye can get off the Mega, but I can also bring in my Zard. He doesn't have any screens or anything up like that, so this whatever I go for is really gonna hurt. So I just go, I don't remember what I go for actually. A lot of this game is okay. I just go straight for the Flare Blitz. Yep. So this brings the Whimsicott down. Now here I predict him to not go for the Memento since I do have the Bisharp and he can just Tailwind, so he can get Tailwind Iron Defense. So I go for the Roost, and right here he makes a nice play and goes into his Mew to try to set up, knowing that I probably won't go for the Flare Blitz, afraid of some Memento, and I do go to my Bisharp. Now right here, I think it might have been better if I went for the knockoff. Kind of made him feel a little safe to go for another Iron Defense and then hit him with the taunt, because that would have been really huge, and then there would have been no way Mew can pass, because then I can also bring in my Archeops on the turn taunt ends and then just have a faster taunt, so this Mew really just can't pass. And I really did expect this Mew to have Mental Herb, so I should have gone for the knockoff rather than the taunt, but I tried to be a little bit safe, I guess, and went for the taunt. And now here he just goes for the Baton Pass. It's pretty obvious that he's going to go into Clefable, so I just go straight for the Iron Head, and I actually get a crit. Now that crit, like, NJNP definitely felt bad about that getting crit, and without the crit, I think I would have done around like 45-ish, 45-ish%. But the thing is, this Clef would not have been able to beat me, no matter, it would not have been able to beat me. It would have been able to do damage to my team, but it would not have been able to beat me no matter what, because I can just, I can taunt and Endeavor it, and I can also taunt and Iron Hit it. Like, there are ways for me to deal with this Clefable, but I actually do get a crit, which does help me out. And let's be completely honest, that's justice for him ringing Baton Pass. But he goes into his Latias here, and I'm really not sure what it wants to do. So I go into my Archeops, as he just goes for the Reflect. Right here, I go for the Tailwind. I'm really like hesitant to go for Rocks or Taunt. Not sure what he wants to do, and this also helps me counteract Whimsicott's own Tailwind. And I'm really hesitant about killing this Whimsicott so early, so he just goes for the Taunt right here, as I bring in my Zardex, expecting him to not go for the Memento. And then later I bring in my Bisharp, just trying to play around this Whimsicott a little bit safely, so I don't give his Mew another random setup opportunity. Now here I go into my Archeops, knowing that Tailwind will run out, knowing that I'll be able to taunt the Mew later on, so he won't be able to pass, but he goes for the Calm Mind here as I go to my Diggersby. This is a problem. The reason I went to Diggersby is because he does have that Reflect up, which means my Zard isn't going to be doing isn't going to be really doing that well against him, but here I go into my Zard X because the Reflect is going to wear out that turn, and I figured I could deal with whatever he wants to do, but he actually goes to his Mew. So here I just go play it safe and go back into my Archeops. I do have the faster taunt, and the thing I was afraid about there is if he had taunt on his own Mew. That's what I was afraid of. But he went for the Baton Pass to his Sableye. I bring in my Zard X right here as he goes for the recover. I'm kind of just like talking through the moves, but really all I'm trying to do here is stop that Mew from Baton Passing. That's really the goal of what I'm doing. The game doesn't really have too many long-term plans just because the nature of how it is to play against Baton Pass. But my goal is to stop that Mew from setting up, and also potentially use Azumarill to because I am Belly Drum Azumarill, potentially using Azumarill to win. I'm really being careful about Latias's potential Healing Wish, and being very, very careful about how I play around that Whimsicott so that Mew can't set up, and mostly just being careful about the Calm Mind Sableye, which is a little bit annoying if I let Charizard or Azumarill go down. But really, Archeops, the fast taunt, is really working out for me because I can stop that Whimsicott from passing. And the other big threat is Togekiss flinching my team through, but I go for the Flare Blitz here as he goes for the Calm Mind. I think he was trying to predict a double or something. I have no idea why, because Zardex just rips through his team. But here I was wanting to go for the Dragon Claw, but I was a little bit afraid since I might not have killed the Sableye if he stayed in. So I just go for the Flare Blitz as he goes to his Latias. He actually goes for the Reflect right here, and he actually goes for the Roar, which is why I outspeed him. I do go knockoff and get a crit. I was actually a little bit afraid about this crit, because I was thinking it might give Mew a setup opportunity, and that's really what I was afraid of. But I just go into my Archeops here, hoping that he won't go for a taunt. And it really seems like this Mew does not have taunt, so I am not going to risk doubling on this Sableye to try to take it down. I don't want that Mew to pass at all. And he just goes into a Sableye while the Reflect is up. This, I think, was a bad move by NJNP, because I'm literally just going to go right back into Archeops, and this Mew is not going to accomplish anything if it doesn't have Taunt plus Baton Pass Iron Defense. I'm guessing it has Roost and then like Sub or some Amnesia or something along those sorts. But really, he's not going to accomplish, this double did not accomplish anything, because I just go back into my Archeops as he just goes for the substitute, and this is not going to help him at all, and all he did was waste a little bit of HP on Mew, which is really good, kind of makes up for how I didn't go for the knockoff to get damage on the Mew, and then surprise him with a taunt. And I just go for the taunt here as he just, I don't know what he's trying to do, but he does switch out here because I think he's going to struggle if he doesn't switch out, and those Reflect turns just go out, so that was a little bit wasted, I think, on his part. But he actually goes for the Air Slash, gets a crit, which knocks me into my Citrus, and I get flinched, so that's not working out well for me. I'm really not sure what this Togekiss even has, which is why I'm so afraid. And we do see here that he outspeeds me. I can't remember if, I think I am Jolly Diggersby, but he does outspeed me right there. So here I go to my Archeops and go for the taunt in case this wants to Thunder Wave, Nasty Plot. Actually, it does go for the Nasty Plot. This right here, this was perhaps a little risky, because if he went to a Sableye, which was so easy for him to do, because I think NJNP is quite aware that I don't have Head Smash, because otherwise, one, I would have gone for it, and two, I revealed Tailwind, and Endeavor's most likely my last move. So, but, like, just the way NJNP plays, I could tell that he was not going to go into a Sableye, and getting up rocks really helps, because that removes his Whimsicott. If I force out the Togekiss, that means that I can get a little rocks damage on it, and it helps me chip down the Mew and the Sableye as well. So I really found that play to be pretty useful to me to pretty much finish off this game with a little more security. So I just go for the Endeavor here to see how much it'll do. It actually does a hefty chunk to hit. So here I just go for the taunt so it can't roost or anything, and then NJNP is just smashing that Air Slash button. Here I go for the Tailwind, and he just Air Slashes and kills me, thankfully, because this means I maximize the amount of turns I have to abuse the Tailwind with my Bisharp. I think he should have sacked his Whims. Like, really the only hope was that he would somehow win with this Togekiss, but there really wasn't much hope. I wasn't sure if this was like... I wasn't sure, but I think this game was pretty much lost at that point. He could have tried to make some counterplay by wasting Tailwind turns, but it really wasn't going to help him. And so I was able to win this Baton Pass matchup. Again, the crit was helpful on the Clefable, but I don't think it was game-changing. And it really helped that I burned the Mew's Mental Herb so that Archeops could stop it from Baton Passing anytime on later on in the game. And NJNP's move of staying in with the Sableye on Charizard's Flare Blitz was, I think, really, really poor, because that was a really physically bulky Sableye, which would have been annoying for my team, especially with Togekiss to kind of semi-combat Azumarill. But I was able to take this game. It was a little bit more straightforward and not as exciting because it was against Baton Pass. But this last game will be very, very exciting, I think, so I'll be right back with Game 3. Alright guys, we're back for Game 3. Now this time I'm using a team made by my friend John XU. It's Manectric Semi-Stall, and I really like the way it plays out. And NJNP has brought Electric Spam with Manaphy, Breloom, Rachi, and then Chomp for like opposing electrics, I guess. But His team looks really offensively threatening. The Manaphy could be annoying if it gets a lot of burns on my Clefable. The Breloom can spore around, SD around. Main thing is that it can spore, and I have no spore switch-in, so I have to sack one thing to spore. Jirachi, at this point I was thinking it was Choice Scarf and that Garchomp was the rocker, because the team did look slightly Talonflame weak, because Thundurus is not the good answer to Talonflame at all, and Manectric is decent, depending on how the Talonflame user can play around Manectric, but my Talonflame is not offensive, so it's not as threatening to NJNP's team, and we actually see later on that this Manaphy is a little more bulky, so it can take it on. But I lead off, my Manectric is the biggest threat to NJNP's team. If I can get off my Mega Evolution, then I can do really, really well against this team. So I lead off straight with my Manectric, as he leads off with his Garchomp. Now, I don't go for the HP Ice here, because it won't kill a Tank Chomp, and I really don't want to take an Earthquake and take damage on my Manectric. It is going to be tough to Mega Evolve my Manectric without sacking a Mon. It's going to be really tough, but I think if I can get it off, I'll be able to do a ton of damage. So, because then I'll have the speed that I need. So he actually pulls a double into Manaphy as I switch out into my Skarmory, and this is actually a really important thing that even I missed. His Garchomp switched out before my Manectric, which just clearly indicates that it's Choice Scarf. And I definitely shouldn't have noticed this. It would have mattered in the later game, because in the later game I was playing around as if it might be SD. And it also should have tipped me off that the Jirachi is Stealth Rocks, and this will matter. So he actually doubled into his Jirachi, expecting me to go into my Clefable, which is unaware to take on Manaphy. And here I go for the Protect, thinking that this was Choice Scarf, and that I would be able to see whether he goes for the Iron Head or the U-turn. And he actually goes for the Stealth Rocks, and this is so crushing, because I just wasted a turn as he just went up for the Stealth Rocks. I didn't even switch out to something like Manectric. I could have switched out to Manectric on that Stealth Rock and gotten off my Mega Evolution for sure. Even if I Volt switched on his Manectric or Garchomp, at least I would have gotten off the Mega Evolution. And I probably would not have gone for the Volt switch. I probably would have gone for the Flamethrower, just because Lightning Run on his Manectric would be annoying. And I think NJNP would be aware that I wouldn't go for the Electric move. But regardless, that just lost me a lot of momentum, so I really need to make up for it. And I realize that U-turn is really obvious here, so I go for the Moonblast right here on the U-turn. I really needed to catch up a little bit ground, and NJNP actually brings in his Breloom. This was a really poor play. I don't know why he brought in his Breloom. If he was predicting me to Flamethrower, it makes no sense. If he was predicting me to T-Wave, it makes no sense. Like, Breloom just did not make sense at all. I think, like, even if you were predicting me to Wish, it just wasn't a good play. And I think NJNP realized that later on, but he does sack his Breloom right there, as I am able to kind of make up for the momentum I lost by making that slightly aggressive play, which was really good for me. Now, the next series of plays was really, really ballsy by me, and a lot of people, I think, were pretty excited to see it, but they were also kind of questioning why I was sacking away my Clefable, and you'll see it's because I stay in on a ton of U-turns from this Jirachi. Now, a lot of people were saying that Clefable is my win condition. I really want to say that Clefable did not really come to me as a win condition. It came to me as important because that Thundurus is looking like a Grass Knot, like Life Orb attacking Breaker variant to help with Manectric. So Clefable can kind of take on Thundurus, and it's also useful if it's Nasty Plot Thundurus, because then I can unaware stall it before my Manectric won't be able to beat it before it's Mega Evolved, unless it's Mega Evolved already. So in that sense, Clefable was important. But think about what happens if this Jirachi U-turns as I switch out with my Clefable into my Skarmory. It's going to be horrendous, because that basically gives him a ton of free switches. It brings in a Thundurus, which can just pound through my team. If it's Life Orb Thunderbolt, that would be 2-KOing my Clefable after Stealth Rocks, even if I Protect, I think. And it has Grass Knot to hit my Hippowdon. I'm dead sure it has Grass Knot to hit Hippowdon. And we actually see later that it's mixed. So it actually has... Well, I didn't know this at the time, but I just lost a lot by staying in on the U-turn. I lost a lot by switching out on the U-turn. And what did I lose by getting Iron-Headed as I stayed in? Basically, I would lose Clefable, most likely. I'd probably tank one Iron Head, because this is defensive Rachi. But it also meant it would give my Manectric a free switch. And people were saying, oh, you also need Clefable to beat Manaphy. I really don't need Clefable to beat Manaphy, because I was thinking that Manectric would be able to handle Manaphy at the time. Now, for this turn, I was dead sure, based on the way NJNP plays, that he would go for the U-turn right here. If it was someone else, I may not have done this, but I was sure on that turn that NJNP would go for the U-turn. And after I go for the Moonblast here, and I think on the later turns, this is when I start to think a little bit more about the benefits of staying in with versus switching out with Clefable. So he goes back into his Jirachi on the Clefable's Moonblast, and this is where I really start to consider those pros and cons of staying in versus switching out. But I do decide to stay in one more time on this Manaphy so that I can try. I was thinking of doubling into my Skarmory on this Jirachi, which I was expecting to come back in, so I could defog. And then from there, I'd always be able to prevent rocks by switching in Skarmory on Jirachi every time it comes in. And the only thing I lose is momentum and letting the Jirachi get leftovers. But he actually goes for the Rain Dance right there and goes for the Scald. Thankfully, he does not burn me, and I'm able to just go for the Wish this turn. I did not want to go for the Protect in case he wanted to switch, but he actually goes straight for the Scald and gets the burn, which is a little bit bad, because now this means that the next Scald will kill me if I don't go for the Protect. Now, I don't go for the Protect because this Thundurus is a big threat, and I really need this Clefable to not be burned to better handle on those mons, because leftovers is really key right now at this moment. And he actually goes for the Iron Tail, and it does a solid 62.8%, but because of Wish and I get 2 turns of leftovers with Protect, I will be able to heal off all of that damage. And this is why, because he revealed this, now I realize that how Clefable, letting Thundurus get a free switch in on, if I switch into Skarmory on a Jirachi's U-turn, it's just going to be horrendous for me, because it also does not give my Manectric an opportunity to set up to Mega Evolve, because I can't really Mega Evolve on Defiant Thundurus with Intimidate, and I also just lose a Mon, which would just be really, really bad for me. So here I just keep wishing. I think he switches out right here on my Protect into his Jirachi, and this again is where I realize how important it is to not go to Skarmory on a U-turn, because that would be really, really bad. And I go for the Protect right here just to get off a little more leftovers, and he goes for a U-turn. This is where I really start to consider Iron Head versus U-turn, switching out versus staying in, and I decided to stay in, and I get him on the U-turn and get off a bit more damage on this Manaphy, which is really good. I think it might have been helped to run calcs to realize that this Manaphy has a lot of HP investment, but because you'll actually see later on that Slowbro can take down this Manaphy. But I bring in my Skarmory here, trying to catch the Jirachi once again, as he just fires off a Scald. Here I'm just going to go for the Defog. I really want these rocks out, and he brings in his Thundurus on the Defog to get the Defiant boost. Right here I go into my Talon, just sacking it off so I can bring in my Clefable again, and because I really can't afford to switch into it directly. And he actually goes for the knockoff, which I think was a good play, because it kind of deals with everything neutrally, Manectric, Hippowdon, and if I go to Clefable, you remove his leftovers, which means Iron Tail is going to be it's really going to be breaking it, and Jirachi and Manaphy it's just, if I lose leftovers on Clefable, it really prevents my recovery. But I actually bring in my Talonflame, and I am no items acrobatic, so that knockoff does not do that much. That was actually a really high roll, and I'm able to roost all this, realizing that I'm just going to make the Thundurus take more Life Orb damage. Thunderbolt won't be doing as much when I'm specially defensive and I'm not weak to it. That won't be really doing much, so he realizes that, switches out to his Manaphy, and I want to see how much, I kind of see what this Manaphy set is, and that Acrobatics does such little damage that now I realize that this is like a physically defensive Manaphy with like Calm Mind, Rest, Rain Dance most likely, or even Tail Glow Rain Dance, but really, really bulky with Rest most likely. So I bring in my Slowbro here as he actually goes to his Manaphy, and here I try to make it an opportunity to go into my Manectric, also kind of seeing if this Manaphy does have Energy Ball and Tail Glow, but he actually brings in his Thundurus, and I really can't Mega Evolve on the Thundurus, so I switch out into my Hippowdon to try to pivot around, as he actually goes to his Jirachi. So what I use this as an opportunity to get off huge damage on this Jirachi with the Earthquake, and then if I'm not passive around the Jirachi, I'm going to stop it from getting leftovers recovery, getting too much leftovers recovery, and this really helps my Manectric beat down his team a little bit better. Now he brings in his Thundurus as my Hippowdon goes for the Stealth Rocks. I'm definitely just going to sack Talonflame here. It's not doing much else in this game, and there's no reason for me to stay in with my Hippowdon on that Grass Knot as we just saw. Now this means I can bring in my Clefable once again, and it might have been good to go for the Moonblast here actually, because Thundurus again does 62.1%, Sand wears out so it's not going to kill me, and I am able to just go for the Protect right here and make sure that I heal myself back up. But what that does do is it makes a little bit more Life Orb damage on that Thundurus, so it's going to be going down after some rocks. Now this turn I really was thinking that it's not going to help me to stay in on, it's really not a good play at that point to stay in on the Jirachi's U-turn, because this Thundurus is now so low. Like, look at this Thundurus, it's at 39.5%, which means after rocks it's really going to be going down pretty much. So I decided to just go into my Skarmory, as he brings in his Manaphy on the Skarmory actually, which I guess he's trying to be a little bit careful about bringing in his Thundurus a little too early, since he doesn't have as many turns to really abuse it now because of Life Orb and Stealth Rock. So I bring in my Slowbro again on this Manaphy, because I'm thinking that the Slowbro can deal this Manaphy, because I'm just predicting it's set based on the damage with Talonflame, and I go for the Calm Mind here, as he reveals his own Calm Mind, and now I'm really thinking that this is not Tail Glow energy. Well, it's obviously not Tail Glow, but I'm really thinking that this is mono attacking Manaphy now, so I just go for the Psyshock, get a bit of damage on it, and see how much it's doing, as he actually goes for the Rain Dance, and I get a crit. Now here he goes for his own Scald, and gets a crit, and this is really scary, but I did go for the Slack Off right here. Very thankfully, I did go for the Slack Off, and if I'm just going to go for the Slack Off once again, as he does not get a crit, which it does a lot less, so now I'm able to really take on this Manaphy. All he did by that was gaining a little more leftovers, but this Slowbro is really going to beat this Manaphy 1v1. Now right here he switches into his Jirachi on my Psyshock very nicely. I didn't think it was worthwhile to go for the Scald, because really I was letting myself get worn down by burns and stuff, but he actually stays in to try to Iron Head flinch down my Slowbro. So he gets that first Iron Head flinch, and this is looking really, really annoying if you can keep Iron Head flinching me. But here he actually goes for the U-turn, and he switches into his Manectric, which I guess he was really thinking of not going to do much with Hippowdon around, and I'm able to get a Scald off on that. I think he was trying to expect me on a Slack Off, but I figured that I can just get Regenerator and work with that. But he actually brings in his Thundurus on my Hippowdon, and this makes him take sand damage as well, so he's going to go down to Life Orb this turn. Now I was considering going for the Slack Off here on a Grass Knot, because I figured I could take one Thundurus I figured I could take one Grass Knot as long as it was not like max special attack and it didn't get a really high roll, like for whatever reason if it was max special attack. But I was thinking that it was a little too risky, because I was thinking Hippowdon was really good for Jirachi, Manectric, and Garchomp. At this point, I was wondering if Garchomp was SD or not, because I did not realize that it was Choice Scarf. Although I was keeping it a possibility in my mind that it might be Choice Scarf, I was also keeping a possibility that it might be SD. So I actually go into my Skarmory here, and he goes for the Thunderbolt. I like Thunderbolt as a play, because if I was going to stay in with Hippowdon, I was going to go for the Slack Off. So then Sand would not have killed Thundurus, and he would have one more chance. And Thunderbolt was in general just a good prediction to make sure that he got a kill right there. So he actually goes into his Garchomp as I bring in my Hippowdon. And right here he switches out his Garchomp into his Manaphy, as I just go for the Earthquake just to get off damage on this Garchomp and see what it wants to do. If he goes for the SD, I can Whirlwind it out. And here he actually goes into his Manaphy. So here I'm going to go into my Slowbro, mainly just considering this as an opportunity to heal up with my Slowbro. That's the main reason I want to go into Slowbro, just because I'm getting a little bit low. The Sand and Burn is wearing me down, but the Sand will wear off this next turn, and I'll be able to go for a Slack Off and heal myself up. The next Scald won't be able to kill me. So yeah, I go into a Slowbro on the Jirachi, and right here he goes, I switch out into my Hippowdon just to play it a little safe, get a little more Regenerator on my Slowbro, as he just goes straight for the Iron Head, trying to flinch down my Slowbro, I guess, and get a little more leftovers. But right here, I try to switch into my Manectric on the Iron Head, thinking that he's really just going to be desperate and just keep going for the Iron Head rather than the U-turn. He doesn't have any Earthquake switch-ins, really. So I am able to bring in my Manectric on the Jirachi, and this is the turn where I end the game. I expect the Garchomp. I was really being worried about this Garchomp being a Scarf, and that would be the main reason I would go for the HP Ice rather than the Flamethrower. So I was just accounting for the Scarf Garchomp set, and knowing NJNP, he'd have to bring it in right there to try to keep his mods alive. And because I'm able to HP Ice the Garchomp, I'm just going to win the game. His Manectric's not Mega Evolved, so I can outspeed and KO it. Same with Manaphy, and it's just low. And Jirachi will go down to a Flamethrower. So yeah, I win that game. And I think it was really crucial that I did not bring in my Skarmory on a Jirachi's U-turn before I had Stealth Rocks up, and before I had weakened the Thundurus and kind of scouted out its set. It was really important for me to play carefully around that Thundurus, because if I did not, I would have gone down really early. I would have lost some mons early, and I would have not been able to Mega Evolve Manectric, which would have been horrendous for me. So, and also, Calm Mind Slowbro proved to be really good against this team. And you see that Clefable wasn't actually as important as it was, besides Life Orb stalling the Thundurus and kind of taking on the Manaphy, because Slowbro itself could take on the Manaphy. And I did have Manectric to offensively pressure it, even though it was Calm Mind. So I still think that staying in with Clefable on the Jirachi was one of my better plays. Like, obviously it worked out, but people might think that it still wasn't as good play. And a lot of people were wondering how is this guy so confident and aggressive to stay in with his Clefable. And really, I was just being concerned about that Thundurus coming in and breaking through my team. And I was able to get play around NJNP. A lot of my predictions were based on how NJNP plays, because every person plays their own way, and you really have to predict based on the person you're playing. You can't predict the same way every single game. And because I was able to read NJNP correctly, I was able to predict around him and win this game. So yep, I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope that was helpful and you learned something, and see you guys later.